When my older brother left for college, he didn't give me a hug. That wasn't really our thing. Instead, he shoved a small, taped-up shoebox into my hands and smirked. "Promise me two things," he said, adjusting his backpack as our parents loaded up the trunk. "Don't open this in front of Mom and Dad, and don't ask questions." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" He just grinned. "Let's just say there'll be plenty more where I'm going." That sounded suspiciously like weed, or worse, those weird joke gifts he used to order online and hide under his bed. The kind that barked or farted when you opened them. I rolled my eyes and tucked the box under my arm, half expecting a whoopee cushion or an old video game cartridge, with something wildly inappropriate drawn on it. We said goodbye. Awkward pats on the shoulder, promises to text, fake punches to the arm. And then he drove off, out of our cul-de-sac and into whatever semi-adult chaos awaited him at college. Didn't think about the box again until after dinner. Our parents were watching a game show in the living room, half asleep with the TV volume turned up way too loud. I slipped away to my room, pulled the box out from under my hoodie, and sat cross-legged on my bed. There was something ceremonial about it, like I was unwrapping buried treasure or a cursed artifact. The tape came off with that loud rip that always feels too revealing, even when you're alone. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside, cushioned in bubble wrap and tissue paper, was not candy, not a prank, not even weed. It was one of those things. An adult novelty toy. The kind you only saw mentioned in locker room jokes or late-night Reddit threads you scrolled past too fast. I froze. My cheeks flushed even though no one was there. The thing looked like it had been purchased as a joke, but not entirely a joke. There was even a small, unopened bottle of lotion tucked next to it with a post-it that just read, "Have fun, kid. You'll thank me later." I stared at it like it might come alive and bite me. This had to be his twisted way of saying, welcome, to being a teenage guy. I should have been grossed out, or at least annoyed. But instead, I laughed. A weird, breathy, oh my god, he actually did this laugh. And once I started laughing, I couldn't stop. It wasn't just the gift, it was the fact that he knew me. Knew I was curious, knew I'd never have the nerve to buy something like that myself. I sat there with the box in my lap for a good 10 minutes. The room was dark except for my bedside lamp, and outside I could hear the faint buzz of summer bugs and the hum of a neighbor's sprinkler. The whole world was quiet. Too quiet for how loud my thoughts were racing. Eventually, curiosity won. I'll spare you the play-by-play. But let's just say it was educational. Awkward, clumsy, incredibly weird, and somehow kind of hilarious. There was a moment, somewhere in the middle of the fumbling and adjusting, where I paused and just said out loud, "What am I even doing?" And then I laughed again. I guess growing up is full of these odd little moments. The ones you'd never talk about with anyone, but that feel like bizarre rites of passage anyway. By the time I finally cleaned up and tucked everything back into the box, hiding it deep under my bed like it was a state secret, I was smiling like an idiot. Not because of what I had done, exactly, but because it felt like some strange bridge had been crossed. My brother didn't say goodbye with hugs or words. He handed me a box. And somehow, that felt more like him than anything else could have. I laid back on my bed, staring at the ceiling fans spinning slow circles above me. And I wasn't sure what felt weirder, using it, or kind of liking it. The next day after school, Zane came over like he always did. He didn't knock. He never did. He just let himself in, yelled, "Yo," from the front door, and dumped his backpack by the stairs. We'd known each other since 2nd grade, and my parents had long since given up on formal greetings when it came to him. "You start the project yet?" he asked, already halfway to the fridge. I shook my head from the living room couch. "Nah, let's pretend we're being productive for like 20 minutes first." "Classic," he said, cracking open a soda. Stalling is the first step of the creative process. We settled in like usual, phones out, laptops open, half-baked homework effort mixed with our usual nonsense. Memes, Reddit, a random video about conspiracy theories. Zane was the only person I could go from laughing hysterically with to sitting in complete silence for an hour. Each of us doing our own thing in the same room. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I wanted to see his reaction, Or maybe, deep down, I kind of wanted to share the weirdness of what had happened the night before. So, I said casually, my brother left me something before he left for college. Zane didn't look up from his phone. What? Like a heartfelt letter? Bag of chips? Worse. Way worse. That got his attention. He lowered his screen. Worse how? I leaned back, suppressing a grin. He gave me a grown-up novelty item. His eyebrows shot up. Like, a prank thing? Or a real thing? I didn't answer right away. I just gave him that look. The one that says, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Zane burst out laughing. No way. No freaking way. He gave you a serious one? I nodded. Dude, that's actually kind of amazing. I thought it was a joke, I said. I opened it alone last night. Was not ready. Did you? He paused, laughing even harder. Did you try it? I rolled my eyes and tossed a throw pillow at him. That is not the point. That is definitely the point. We both cracked up. The weird thing was, it didn't feel uncomfortable. I thought it would be mortifying to bring it up, but instead, it was just another chapter in the ridiculous book of our friendship. After the laughter died down, he got quiet for a moment. His head tilted slightly, like he was thinking hard about something he wasn't sure he should say. Then, can I see it? I blinked. Wait, seriously? Not like that, he said quickly, holding up his hands. I mean, I don't know. I've just never seen one in real life. Kinda curious? I hesitated. It wasn't like showing him a weird gadget or some new shoes. This was personal, private. But Zane wasn't just anyone. If there was anyone who could laugh something off and still make you feel normal afterward, it was him. All right, I said slowly. But don't be weird. I'm never weird, he said, already smirking. I pulled the box out from under my bed, cracked it open, and handed it over like it was radioactive. He took it with a mix of reverence and curiosity, turning it in his hands, inspecting it from all angles. Man, he muttered. This is... wow. He looked up. Can I, try it? I stared at him. You're joking. No, I mean, not here, obviously. Just in the bathroom or whatever. It was my turn to pause. Zane. He raised his eyebrows. Come on, man. Scientific curiosity. I sighed, already regretting my existence. Fine. Knock yourself out. But wash your hands. And your soul. He grabbed the box and vanished into the bathroom like he was going on a top-secret mission. I heard the door click shut. Then silence. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. I glanced at the hallway, wondering if I should text him a meme just to lighten the mood. Finally, the door opened. Zane stepped out, expression unreadable. He walked back into the room, handed me the box, and sat on the floor without saying anything. I watched him. Well? He shrugged. I don't know. Didn't really work for me. I blinked. Seriously? He looked a little embarrassed. I thought it'd be different, I guess. I couldn't figure it out. I nodded slowly. Yeah, it's weird. We didn't talk about it again right away. We went back to our laptops, pretending we cared about the project due next week. But the vibe was different. Not bad. Just different. I could tell something had shifted, but I didn't know what. We didn't bring it up again for a while. Zane went back to scrolling through his phone. I opened a document for our group project and stared at it blankly, pretending to type. Every few minutes I'd glance over at him. He looked deep in thought, not his usual distracted, joke-cracking self. Finally he spoke. Okay, don't laugh. Not making any promises. He sighed. I seriously couldn't figure out how it's supposed to work. I looked at him. What do you mean? I don't know, he said, flopping dramatically onto his back on the carpet. I thought it'd just, work. But it didn't feel right. I couldn't hold it in the right place or get the angle. That's oddly specific. It's not like there's a manual, he muttered. And every video makes it look easy. I chuckled, still typing nonsense into the doc. You're really overthinking this, dude. Yeah, well, you said it worked for you. I froze. I never said that. You didn't have to, he replied, looking up at the ceiling. You had that smug look on your face last night at school. I know that face. I rolled my eyes. Okay, maybe I figured it out. Doesn't mean I'm opening a tutorial channel. Zane went quiet for a second. Then he sat up and looked at me seriously. Too seriously. Could you, help me? I blinked. Help you? He hesitated. Not like that. I mean, just hold it. While I try again. I stared at him. I know it sounds insane, he added quickly. But I can't get it to stay where I need it. And you've got experience. Experience? I used it once, Zane. I'm not a guru. He laughed, but it was that nervous kind of laugh where he wasn't sure if he was pushing the line. I don't know, man. I just feel dumb. It's supposed to be this thing every guy raves about, and I felt like I was trying to screw a jar of peanut butter with one hand tied behind my back. I burst out laughing at that. What even is that analogy? You know what I mean. I didn't, not really. But I got the frustration, and honestly, I felt bad. Zane rarely got embarrassed about anything. For him to even ask meant this was bugging him more than he let on. So I sighed. Fine, but only because I'm a generous and supportive friend. Thank you, he said, like I'd just agreed to donate a kidney. We went upstairs to my room, and the absurdity of the situation hit me immediately. The lights were dim, the ceiling fan made that low whirring noise, and the novelty item sat there in its box like some sacred object. Zane stood awkwardly by the bed. So how do we— I'm not holding it like a trophy, I said quickly. Let's just get this over with. He laughed and pulled his hoodie off, clearly more nervous than usual. You're a saint. I better get a snack out of this. Fine, I'll buy you fries next week. We both laughed again, which helped. A little. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding the toy with both hands like it was part of a weird science project. Zane stood in front of me, adjusting his stance like a golfer lining up a shot. This is so dumb, he said. Extremely. But neither of us backed out. He took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. What followed was probably the most uncomfortable 5 minutes of my life. I stared determinedly at the posters on my wall while holding the thing steady, and he experimented. There was a lot of adjusting, a lot of grumbling, some awkward instructions like a little higher or wait, no, lower, and even more awkward silences. At one point he muttered, "You're the real MVP, man." "Don't talk," I said flatly. It makes it worse. And yet somehow, it didn't feel wrong. It felt stupid. Funny. Like one of those bizarre teenage memories you'd both deny ever happened, even though it secretly bonded you forever. When he finally stepped back and gave a thumbs up, or maybe a mercy signal, I quickly dropped the thing back into the box and shoved it aside like it had never existed. We both sat in silence for a moment, not making eye contact. Then we burst out laughing. What even was that? I asked between wheezes. A trust exercise from hell. I nodded, still laughing. You owe me so many fries. He grinned. Deal. And even though I couldn't have explained it to anyone else if I tried, I knew something about our friendship had changed. Not in a bad way, just deeper, stranger, realer. It was the weirdest trust exercise I'd ever been part of. After everything, we just lay there. I was on my back on the bed, arms behind my head, staring at the ceiling fan like it had the answers to life. Zane sat at the foot of the bed, still catching his breath, hands planted behind him for support, eyes glued to a spot on the wall. The room was quiet. Too quiet for two people who had just survived one of the most absurd bonding exercises in recorded history. Then Zane spoke. Okay, so we're never talking about this again, right? I let out a dry laugh. Oh, it's going on your resume. Once needed emotional support for private experimentation, he groaned. Dude, don't say experimentation. That makes it sound like a science fair project gone wrong. Wasn't it? He shook his head, chuckling. I still can't believe you actually helped. I still can't believe you asked. That was all it took. The dam broke. We both exploded into laughter again. Real, full-bellied, no holding back kind of laughter. It rolled out of us in waves, awkward tension turning into ridiculous relief. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the bed. Zane was wheezing, face red, eyes watering, saying things like, "Why are we like this?" And, "There are normal people out there, man." For a few minutes the world made no sense, and perfect sense at the same time. It was like we'd ripped the lid off something neither of us had known we were carrying. When we finally calmed down, the room felt lighter, softer, like some invisible weight had been lifted. Zane flopped back onto the floor with a dramatic sigh. I swear, being a teenager is just a never-ending highlight reel of weird. You say that like it's gonna get better, he snorted. Fair. Silence settled in again, but this time it wasn't awkward, it was thoughtful. After a minute, he said, You ever feel like you're supposed to have everything figured out, but you don't even know where to start? I turned my head toward him. All the time, he nodded. Like, everyone's got some master plan. Dating, college, careers. And I'm still trying to figure out how to fold a fitted sheet and not trip over my own thoughts. I smiled at that. I don't think anyone has it figured out. They just get better at faking it. He let out a long breath. Sometimes I think I'm broken or something, like I'm missing some manual everyone else got. I sat up a little. Because of today? No, he said quickly. I mean, not just today. It's everything. Girls, friendships, growing up. There's just this pressure to be a certain kind of person, to act a certain way, and I don't know if I fit that. That hit a little harder than I expected. I get that, I said quietly. You try to laugh it off or pretend you're cool with everything, but inside, you're like, what am I doing? Who am I supposed to be? He looked up at me, and for once, didn't have a joke ready. Exactly. It wasn't dramatic or heavy, just honest. We talked for a while, about school, girls we'd crushed on but never talked to, how dumb gym class was, and how neither of us really knew what we were doing with life. It wasn't the kind of conversation we usually had, but somehow it didn't feel out of place. At one point Zane said, You think it's weird? Like, that this happened? I thought about it, then shook my head. No. I think it's weird that we're taught not to talk about this stuff. Like it's supposed to be shameful or something. He nodded slowly. Yeah. But it's not. It's just life. I laid back again, arms behind my head, and stared at the ceiling. This whole day had been bizarre, ridiculous even. But it hadn't made things worse between us. If anything, it felt like something had been stripped away. The constant pretending, the need to act cool all the time. We were just us. In all our confusing, awkward, ridiculous glory. I glanced over at Zane, who was now chewing on the edge of a pillow and humming tunelessly to himself like nothing had happened. I laughed softly, shaking my head. That laughter turned something weird into something weirdly. Okay. That night, after Zane left, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling long after the house had gone quiet. The hum of the fan, the occasional car passing outside, the faint creak of wood settling, all the familiar nighttime sounds were there. But I felt different. Not in a big, life-changing way. Just off. Like my skin didn't quite fit the same as it did yesterday. I kept replaying the day in my head. How it all started with a joke, turned into something absurd, and somehow ended with a conversation I didn't know I needed. It wasn't even about the novelty item anymore. That was just the weird catalyst. The thing that cracked open a window we usually kept shut, where we didn't just talk about dumb school stuff or complain about homework. We actually talked. Zane had been vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before, and somehow that made me feel safe enough to be honest too. There was no pretending, no trying to be cool. Just two guys, fumbling through growing up, figuring out what it meant to be in our own skin. I thought about the moment when he asked for help, not in words that made sense, but in that awkward, half-joking, half-serious way that meant more than he let on. And I thought about how I said yes. Why did I say yes? Not because it made sense, not because I was perfectly comfortable, but because it felt important, because I cared, because in that moment, he needed me, and I didn't want him to feel weird or alone, and maybe, if I was being honest, I didn't want to feel alone either. I rolled onto my side, staring at the wall. My mind buzzed with 1,000 questions. I didn't know how to answer. Why did I feel so weirdly close to him now? Was it just because of the situation? The laughter? The trust? It wasn't romantic, at least not in the way movies make you think. But it wasn't just friendship either. Not the kind where you high-five and play video games and never talk about anything real. It was something in between. A closeness that came from being unfiltered, unedited. It was strange how sharing something so awkward could make someone feel more known, like I'd seen a different side of him, more human, more fragile, and he'd seen the same in me. I thought back to his words, how he said he sometimes felt broken, like everyone else had a guidebook and he didn't. I'd never heard him say anything like that before. It made me wonder how many people felt that way, and just never said it out loud. Maybe we all think we're the only ones who feel lost. Maybe that's the biggest lie growing up tells you, that everyone else has it together, and you're just the one falling behind. I pulled my blanket up to my chest and exhaled slowly. The room was cool, but my face felt warm. Not from embarrassment. Just from the weight of the day, and still, under all the confusion, I felt something else too. Something gentle, not shame, not guilt. Something closer to gratitude. For the weirdness, for the trust. For a friendship strong enough to hold all of that and not shatter. I didn't have the words for what that meant yet. I didn't know if I ever would. But maybe that was okay. Growing up isn't always about figuring everything out. Sometimes, it's just about letting things be strange and awkward and real and not running from it. It didn't make me question everything. It just made me feel more human. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal out of a chipped bowl and watching the milk swirl in slow circles. The house was quiet, that specific kind of Saturday morning quiet when everything feels a little softer, like the world hasn't quite woken up yet. Sunlight came in through the blinds, striping the table in gold. I heard the front door creak. "Open! Yo!" Zane called, casual as ever, like yesterday hadn't happened. I didn't say anything right away, just kept chewing, slow and thoughtful. He dropped his bag by the door, kicked his shoes off with a thump, and grabbed a spoon from the drawer like he lived here. He always did that, but today, it felt a little more significant. He sat across from me and poured himself a bowl. No jokes, no jabs, just silence for once. We both ate for a few minutes, the clink of metal on ceramic the only sound between us. Then he glanced up. "Are we still cool?" His voice was soft. He didn't say it like a throwaway comment. He said it like it mattered. Looked at him, really looked. And I realized this was his way of checking in, of asking if things had changed, if I saw him differently now. I didn't hesitate. Always. His shoulders relaxed, just a little. He gave me a small, crooked smile and nodded, going back to his cereal like that was all he needed. And honestly, it was all I needed too. We didn't talk about what happened. We didn't have to. It was one of those things that didn't need unpacking. Not because we were ignoring it, but because we'd already said what mattered. The rest could just be. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was full, comfortable, like a shared secret that neither of us felt weird about keeping. We sat there, eating cereal in that same kitchen we'd known since we were kids. But something had shifted. Not in a dramatic way. Just a quiet, steady kind of change. Like two tectonic plates finally settling into place after a long, slow shift. Zane cracked a joke eventually. Something dumb about the cereal being stale. I laughed. He made fun of my bedhead. I threatened to throw his shoes in the freezer, and just like that, we were back. But not exactly the same. Because underneath the jokes and the cereal and the normal Saturday vibes, something deeper had rooted itself between us. A kind of unspoken understanding that didn't need labels or explanations. he was still my best friend. Maybe more than ever. Not because of what we did, but because of what we could laugh about and still stay us.